Hello and welcome back to Speak Up, CHHA's one and only summer student podcast, the show where three students with hearing loss openly discuss all issues from accommodations to mass to education with a sprinkling of personal stories in between. In case you didn't know, CHHA stands for Canadian Hard of Hearing Association, an organization dedicated to connecting Canadians impacted by hearing loss through advocacy, education, and community engagement. My name is Jason, and with me today are my co-hosts, Catherine and Kaelan.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hey guys, I'm here.
Today, we are thrilled to have a special guest with us, the moderator of our Young Adult Network Summer Camp, Abbie Stonehouse.
Hi, everyone.
Abbie is a stand-up comedian, a writer, and a producer, and in May 2019, she performed and co-produced Montreal's first fully accessible comedy show, Comedy for a Cause, Accessibility for All. Please welcome Abbie to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Abbie, thank you for coming onto the show. We'll be talking a lot about the summer camp, but also getting a chance to know more about you. So our listeners, feel free to leave a comment down below as well to get the chance to meet Abbie. We'll be linking all of her stuff in the description to get a chance to know her more. So later on in the show, we'll be talking a lot about the summer camp as well, so that you can be able to register. It's not too late to register. We'll also be putting that in the description down below.
Plus, to stay in the loop on when we drop another episode or for more CHHA news, make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletters, iListen and iListen Plus. Be sure to click the link down below for more information. So, Abbie, we're thrilled to have you here. And let me just lead you into our first question today. What led you into comedy?
Yeah, good question. I get that question a lot because I feel like a lot of people can't even wrap their heads around going on stage and talking about like making people laugh. I first hit the stage 4 years ago. In the years prior to this, I was probably the #1 Montreal stand-up comedy fan that's ever existed. I saw lots of live shows. The Just for Laughs festival is here in Montreal, so I took full advantage of that. So I exposed myself to a lot of stand-up comedy for years and years and years. And through that, I started writing down little jokes and stuff in my notes app in my phone. And I had a notebook as well. And 4 years ago, I had a friend that wanted to try stand-up for the first time. And he was a friend that I had seen shows with all the time. And so he signed up for an open mic. And intuitively, I was like, oh, I'll try it too. I'll try it too, just for your support. First, to support you, I'll go on stage too. So I went on stage with him that night, and he did very well, and then never did stand up ever again. I did very bad. I bombed completely, never said those jokes ever again. And then I've been going up on stage weekly ever since. So yeah, that's how it all started.
That's really great. And then, I also appreciate your dedication. You said that, the first time didn't go so well, but clearly you had the guts to keep going. You had that grit, you had that determination. So that's really great.
Yeah, I knew enough about stand-up comedy when I got started. Yeah, you can have natural talent to it, but there's a lot of learning that is involved in that. So you can't expect to go on stage every time and totally dominate. And I mean, hopefully eventually you do, especially at open mics that you're trying new material, and that's the process I actually have learned to love so much, is that just seeing the different reactions depending on the crowd and learning from that, adjusting my material. It keeps like a fire in me that like, I continuously want to do better. And so yeah, it's definitely a dedication. You need to And then there's definitely, you definitely have to network, and like people get to know you, and then they put you on stage, and there's a whole other aspect of it too.
Abbie, that your story, what you just said a while ago, really reminds me of just artists in general, because this is an art, really. It is something that you have to prepare. It's something you have to, it's a skill, but it's also something that you prepare over time. And like, it just reminds me of that, like, how artists today, like young artists, people who are aspiring to do something as like comedy, they get scared at the beginning. Like they don't know who to begin, who to talk to. And then like when they start, eventually it feels like they can't do it. Like if they fail the first time and then there's like, not for me. But like just hearing that you like continued forward, and then you kept, networking and just basically build a career out of this from scratch, but something that you didn't even consider doing. It's just aspiring.
Yeah, it's definitely an art form. There are some art councils that don't consider stand-up comedy an art form yet, which blows my mind a little bit. And it's definitely, I've seen a lot of comedians or people that go on stage once and then they give up right after. But you can't let the first time going on stage, or the first year of going on stage, discourage you in a way, because there's so much to learn and there's such a process there. And I was just lucky that I was such a fan before. I've listened to so many podcasts about the art form prior that I didn't let that discourage me. And I've been very lucky to meet a lot of other comedians or other producers that have been supportive to me in this process, where I'm sure a lot of people don't get that same level of support. So I've been very fortunate.
That's great to hear. And then just to follow up on that comment you made about support. So I was wondering, Abbie, how does your hearing loss, or how did your hearing loss affect the comedy that you deliver? How did it affect your career? Have people been supportive? I assume they have, as you mentioned. And how has that sort of changed the type of comedy you deliver, the trajectory of your career, so on?
So I have so much to say about that. So I get that question, the question, does my hearing loss affect the material I write or what I deliver on stage? So all my material that I talk about is based on my real life experiences. So of course, hearing loss affects my material. It's weaving in there. But I try to hit a balance of a variety of different things in my life. So one thing that, you can also see that a lot in DJ Demer's like material. He's definitely hit this like beautiful balance of both his hearing loss and just like his day-to-day stuff. And that he's very, very inspiring to me to watch. So it definitely inspires my material. I would like to incorporate more of my hearing loss stuff into my material, that's for sure. So hearing loss, I've noticed, is very much misunderstood, and it's an invisible disability. And I don't see a lot. From my knowledge, I'm the only stand-up comedian in Montreal with hearing loss. So it's just not part of the conversation. It's not part of the narrative when it comes to accessibility in stand-up comedy. So I can go into that a little bit. Most of the shows that I perform at are not accessible at all. However, I've seen a lot of support among my peers that like they learn about, that I have hearing loss and they adapt to it. But the show itself, themselves are 99.9% of the time not accessible, which sort of breaks my heart a little bit. That being said, having hearing loss and being a stand-up comedian has opened up different doors to me than a normal stand-up comedian has. So I've been connected. I worked for 3 years at a not-for-profit that supported people with hearing loss. And through them, I was able to produce a fully accessible comedy show, which was amazing to experience and see people with hearing loss and people without hearing loss see the benefit of these accessibility measures. So I look forward to definitely merging my hearing loss and stand-up comedy and accessibility all together in the future. I hope that answers all the questions.
Yeah, definitely.
You can definitely re-ask some of them if I went on a tangent.
No, I was just gonna say that I think it's awesome that you're like, incorporating your hearing loss into your comedy sometimes, just because I think it like expands your audience a bit more, because like then you have more people relating to your stuff and they're like, oh yeah, I understand when that happens, and so I think it's good for the long term. I think just expanding your clientele.
Oh, absolutely. And I've already seen that. I've already seen that with I have CHHA members that follow me on Instagram, and I have people with hearing loss that follow me and come see my shows. And that I feel like it's a catalyst for me to produce more accessible shows and have all of them come together. So I'm definitely inspired by all of them following me, and yeah, it definitely expands.
Now, you've been talking a lot about accessibility shows, and I'm very curious as to what do you mean by accessibility? Like, is this because my understanding of stand-up comedy is that you're really, I mean, sure, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, I'm assuming. Maybe you need to find a way to navigate to the area that you're performing at, but my understanding is that you go on a stage, you speak into the mic, and literally that's all I know.
There is an audience there.
Of course there's an audience, but like in terms of I'm just thinking, how would you make it accessible for hard of hearing? Like, I don't understand. Could you explain?
Absolutely. So in a way, stand-up comedy can easily become accessible because the art is very simple. There's a single person, or maybe a couple people that go on stage and speak into a mic. As opposed to some other art forms like theater, where it's a lot more dynamic, right? So for the fully accessible comedy show that I did in 2019, we had live transcribe there. So we had a projector with live transcription. So there was someone live hearing the closed captioning and transcribing it. And also we had ASL there as well. We also chose a venue, or had a venue, that was wheelchair accessible. We also had sighted guides available there for people that were visually impaired as well. So we try to cover all the bases of accessibility there. It's a lot simpler than some people think to make it just baseline accessible for people with hearing loss. It's just really, really not part of the narrative at all. And yeah, so it really, having closed captioning or live captioning is really, really key to that. So, and it was interesting for some of the comedians there that I had at the show, they've never been at an accessible show, and some of them haven't been since to an accessible show, and they they really enjoyed how like how engaged the audience could be, even people without hearing loss were there. I would say that it was like a 50-50 split, people with hearing loss, people without, because they would bring, like, people with hearing loss would bring their someone with them. And at a comedy show, there is a level of that you don't get because things are quick sometimes, and people were able to engage a lot more. And even my friend who's a francophone was there, who is like mainly speaks French. She was really happy that like she could follow along more thoroughly to this English comedy because of the closed captioning. So there was all these added bonuses to it.
And that's really great. And I think that goes to show again that having that sort of representation in comedy can go such a long way towards making things more accessible.
Absolutely. I think so too. I think opening up the conversation just is so powerful. Leading by example is so powerful. I'm definitely not, just by my nature, not a pushy person. So I try to lead by example, have an accessible show people what's involved in that. And little by little, it educates people and it opens up the dialogue about it. And it's really, really great to see.
So just to follow up on that, again, Abbie, so you mentioned that you had a francophone friend, and just for our viewers who aren't aware, Abbie actually lives in Montreal. So Abbie, seeing as you live in Montreal, are there any ways that you can tell that hard of hearing culture, or even maybe comedy culture, differs between English Canada and French Canada? And just a fun fact, by the way, did you know that modern sign language education has its origins in France?
So being an Anglophone in Montreal with hearing loss, I definitely have most of my exposure to the hearing loss community is through the Anglophone community. They tend to, Anglophones and Francophones with hearing loss, they tend to not collide so much, because if you have hearing loss, a lot of times, not everyone, when you have hearing loss, a lot of times you immerse yourself in one language, because communication can be so challenging with that one language that you have with the hearing loss. So a lot of times they tend not to merge so much. But that being said, I worked for an organization that supported the Anglophone community with hearing loss a lot. Well, that was our focus, was the Anglophone community. And then there was another like kind of adjacent community or organization that was for the Francophone. We were partners. We talked a lot together. And we sort of divided and conquered the community that way. In terms of the stand-up comedy world in Montreal with the Anglophones and Francophones, again, they sort of are divided, but then there is a kind of subgroup that consider themselves bilingual stand-up comedians. So they perform in both English and French, or both at the same time. So if any of the listeners know Sugar Sammy, he is a big stand-up comedian that is now international, but he started here in Montreal, and he really built a following because he goes on stage and he speaks French and English. He just like goes back and forth. And in Quebec, we have a term called franglais, where like it's a language that's both French and English that like is not an official language, but we just go back and forth. So there's that, like, I would consider myself part of the Anglophone or the English stand-up community because I only perform in English. So yeah.
You know, what you said really speaks to me, because I used to live in Quebec for a while, 4 years ago when I was younger. And even though I have a French last name, I do not speak French. However, I did notice how when I'm living there, there is a divide between the French side and the English side. Since I spoke more English, I was more on the Anglophone side,
Yeah.
and like the only real friends I had was just American neighbors across the
Okay.
street, and we would just have our conversations there. And it's the same thing in school. They have this complete different system. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but I do think though there are parts where in Quebec, even though there is a bit of a divide because Quebec is trying to preserve its French language and culture, there
Hmm.
are pockets of Quebec where they do collide in some
Yeah.
forms, either through comedy, as you said, like there are some comedians who do perform, and then there's other like events such as Cirque du Soleil. I've
Yeah.
been there to many shows and I love it. And the fact that they don't speak in any language except for their own, it allows people to communicate and just be able to connect.
Hmm.
However, in terms of the hearing loss community, I will say that it's probably more separate because, yeah, as you
Yeah.
said, like there's more chances for confusion when you're trying to communicate to somebody who has a hearing loss and you don't know how to communicate when you're so brought up in one language and you're trying to understand the other person, but you can't because
Yeah.
they might be speaking French to you, but you to them, like to you, they just sound like
Hmm.
they're speaking another language, like speaking
Yeah.
alien.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just like the comedy world, the hearing loss community sort of has this subgroup of people that can communicate in both languages.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, it's a little bit smaller, but I definitely admire them. Like I've lived in Montreal, or I've lived in Quebec my entire life, and French, although I get by in French, it's with my hearing loss, it's so challenging
Mm-hmm.
to keep up. But anyways, yeah.
Absolutely. And to touch on what Catherine said about community and education. So, Abbie, as our viewers know, you are going to be moderating our Young Adult Network Summer Camp very soon.
Hmm.
And could you just give our listeners a sort of brief rundown of what your role will be like at the summer camp?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will be there. I will be introducing people. I will start off each day with welcoming people, and I'm gonna run a icebreaker activity so all of us can get to know each other a lot more. What I saw when I was there at the CHHA conference in 2019, I did see that all these young adults come together and they love to socialize. They love to be together, and it's really fun to see all of them just be amongst each other. People from all over the country come together and they're like best friends for like the 3 days of the conference, which is so beautiful because it's like one of the few opportunities that you get to be around people that have the same sort of challenges that you may have, which is hearing loss. And so a lot of them are super, super fun. So we're gonna, with this summer camp, the coordinators made it a priority that there is a lot of social events that even though we can't be together, we'll still have these opportunities to have fun together, to chat together, to joke together, to see each other's faces. So there's going to be there's the normal for a conference. There's the normal sessions that people are presenting, and there's panels that people are having a Q&A. So my job is to make sure everyone's happy, having fun, introduce people. We're going to have really awesome social activities all throughout the 3 days, and awesome speakers. And then we're gonna end the conference with the amazing DJ Demers doing some comedy, and then we all get to talk to him. We all get to talk to him at the end of his set. So there's going to be a small Q&A in which I gather all of everyone's questions, and we chat together. So it's a beautiful way to end the conference, I think. And we're just there, and the theme is to share, interact, and inspire. And I definitely think that all the panels and the sessions and the activities really, really highlight all of that. And I'm there to make sure that you know, like people see the theme, and like they share and they inspire, and I really want to make sure that happens and everyone has fun.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I think your role is so important, I think, in this summer camp, just because, you know, with the pandemic, we've been like so disconnected. And so I think your role will really help people, you know, build that support system again. And I think
absolutely.
that's just really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw at the conference in June that it was definitely more session oriented. So you came on and you watched and you could chat in the text box. But this one, there's a whole other level to it. And I think the coordinators listened to what the Young Adult Network wanted, and we want to connect. Like a year and a half ago when they were planning this summer camp, or 2 years ago when you're planning this summer camp, it was going to be in person, and people were so jazzed about that, in person, to socialize, have fun, play games together. And I'm really glad that, you know, this is happening virtually. But so I'm definitely looking forward to like bringing that same excitement to this virtual opportunity, even though it might not be what people expected or wanted from this summer camp, but I think it'll still be just as amazing.
Absolutely. And thank you again, Abbie, for agreeing to come on and sharing that with us. I have one last question before we go. I don't mean to put you on the spot at all. What is your favorite joke, and bonus points if it's related to hearing loss?
Oh, I don't know if I could say it on this podcast. It's, my material is not PG whatsoever. But I would definitely. So one of my favorite jokes right now, it's going to be my second favorite joke, because my first favorite joke is not, we can't say it on here. We just can't. I will get fired from whatever I am hired to do. I have a joke about working in an office, and this is a real life experience that happened. What I didn't know, I worked at this office for like 4 years, and what I didn't know before starting working in this office, that my years of rewatching the TV show The Office was actually me watching an instructional video to my future life. So this joke goes on how we waste so much time in this office environment. And this one time, an example of me wasting time is going on a rant about how my boss accused me of stealing her pen. And then she told me to go home for the day after I blasted her about, like, this is not your pen. So that's one of my favorite jokes right now. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can save your favorite for the conference itself.
Maybe. I still don't think I can save my favorite in the conference, but yeah.
Again, Abbie, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and share your story with us today.
Oh,
and
no
now
problem.
We're going to turn to Catherine for some CHHA news. Most relevant today, actually.
Very relevant for sure. Again, thank you, Abbie. And if listeners, if you guys want to get a chance to meet Abbie, don't forget to register, because headlining this year's event is ABC's hit reality show, The Bachelor Season 5, Abigail Hanger, and Judge for Life, regular Juno-nominated comedian DJ Demers. So if you want to be able to hear more funny stories about hearing loss, get more resources about how to navigate your life as someone who's a hard of hearing individual, and as well just have a chance to interact with other young people, please register today at yansummercamp.ca.
And to stay in the loop of when we drop another Speak Up episode, or for other CHHA news, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletters, iListen and iListen Plus. You are listening to Speak Up, CHHA's summer student podcast. Stay tuned.